Maybe one of my favorite poems is by William Blake, an English poet and painter who lived in the 18th century. It's called The Pebble and the Clod. Love seeketh not itself to please, nor for itself hath any care, but for another gives its ease, and builds a heaven in hell's despair. So sung a little clod of clay, trodden with the cattle's feet. But a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters meet. Love seeketh only self to please, to bind another to its delight, joys in another's loss of ease, and builds a hell in heaven's despite. The poem seems extremely simple. It is a dialogue between two characters, a pebble and a clod. A clod is a soft piece of dirt or clay. Each gives its perspective on what love is. Naturally, their views on love reflect the qualities of what they are. The clod, being soft, pliable, and yielding, says love is selfless, generous, sacrificial. The pebble, being hard and unyielding, describes love as selfish, stubborn, a kind of forcing others to conform to you. You can almost see the clod and the pebble, as they are kicked about on the country road by cattle, happily being the kind of thing they are, either soft and yielding or hard and unyielding, and for all they know, doing their jobs the best way they know how. It's their way of loving the world, perhaps. Now, the interesting question is, which version of love is Blake agreeing with? Can we find any clues to support our answer to that question? For me, on a first read, the clod seems obviously better. It expresses something that sounds a lot like the Christian traditional idea of love: selfless, sacrificial. The pebble's view is almost mean. There's nothing loving about taking joy in another's loss of ease or making a hell for others. So the obvious answer is the clod wins. But when you look at the poem more closely, you see that the two sides are perfectly balanced. Both characters speak 4 lines. Both give arguments supported by their natural qualities as objects. The clod and the pebble are being true to what kinds of thing they are. What about the middle stanza? Any clues there? So sung a little clod of clay trodden with the cattle's feet, but a pebble of the brook warbled out these meters meet. Not really. It seems pretty neutral. There is no tip-off that the speaker thinks one side is better than the other. So this does not help us much. Even the order of the poem fails to support my initial reaction that the clod is better. There's a slight bias when we read that the earlier part of a text is a problem and the later part of the text is a solution. At least if the pebble spoke first, you could argue that the clod is offering the better attitude about love, but the pebble speaks second. So while I might like the clod better, I can't arbitrarily claim that the poem is saying that it is. I need to reevaluate my reaction. Is Blake saying love has a selfish side? If we step back and consider the context, we can get a better picture of what's going on. This poem is part of a collection called Songs of Innocence and Experience. The collection is divided into 2 parts: Songs of Innocence and Songs of Experience. This might be a clue to how to read the Pebble and the Clod poem. One is innocence, the other experience. Maybe Blake sees innocence and experience as complementary parts of life rather than opposites. To see why he might think this, let's go one more step back and read 2 of Blake's most well-known poems, which also come from this collection: The Lamb and the Tiger. The Lamb, unsurprisingly, is in the Innocence section, and the Tiger is part of the Experience section. They're both excellent and short, so let's look at them. Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Gave thee life and bid thee feed by the stream and o'er the mead? Gave thee clothing of delight, softest clothing, woolly bright? Gave thee such a tender voice, making all the vales rejoice? Little lamb, who made thee? Dost thou know who made thee? Little lamb, I'll tell thee. Little lamb, I'll tell thee. He is called by thy name, for he calls himself a lamb. He is meek and he is mild. He became a little child. I a child, and thou a lamb. We are called by his name. Little lamb, God bless thee. Little lamb, God bless thee. For our purposes, we can simply note that the lamb has the symbolic associations we'd expect: smallness, helplessness, gentleness. It is almost the archetypal symbol of innocence. The poem also focuses on God as the creator of the lamb. Little lamb, who made thee? This questioning posture gives the poem a praise-like tone. The qualities of the lamb are mapped onto God as if to say, God must have the same qualities as lambs have, and that's wonderful to think about. As if to provide proof that God, in fact, shares these qualities with the lamb, the poem evokes the mystery of the incarnation, where God became a human being, a little child, a creature who is also meek and helpless. God shows his likeness to the lamb when he becomes a human being. So on a deeper level, this is not a poem just about a lamb, but about God. Now let's look at the tiger. Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye could frame thy fearful symmetry? In what distant deeps or skies burnt the fire of thine eyes? On what wings dare he aspire? What the hand dare seize the fire? And what shoulder and what art could twist the sinews of thy heart? And when thy heart began to beat, what dread hand and what dread feet? What the hammer, what the chain? In what furnace was thy brain? What the anvil, what dread grasp dare its deadly terrors clasp? When the stars threw down their spears and watered heaven with their tears, did he smile his work to see? Did he who made the lamb make thee? Tiger, tiger, burning bright in the forests of the night, what immortal hand or eye dare frame thy fearful symmetry? As we'd expect, the tiger gets fierce, predatory qualities. And once again, these qualities are conferred to God, the creator of the tiger. This seems partly fine. God is powerful, sublime, and terrifying. On the other hand, there is some fairly stark imagery here that might not seem to fit our picture of God. In particular, there is striking infernal or hellish imagery: fire, dread, terror. The phrase, when the stars threw down their spears, is a reference to the fall of Satan from heaven. Satan and God do not mix, so there is a problem or tension which becomes expressed in the poem's climactic line, did he who made the lamb make thee? The poet asks the question almost as if he can't comprehend how such a thing could be possible. The answer, of course, is yes, God did make the tiger. He made everything that exists. We think of God and Satan as opposites, or of heaven and hell as opposites, forgetting that God is not part of a system of opposites, but is above all opposites. If there is a hell, he made it. He created the angel Lucifer, who became Satan. And if some parts of his creation, such as the lamb, express his nature, then it's only consistent to say that other parts of his creation also express aspects of his nature, even if they're more hellish, like tigers. So think about what these two poems, The Lamb and the Tiger, are implying about God. God makes both the lamb and the tiger, even though they seem to exhibit contradictory qualities. The surprise is not that God can create such different creatures, but that his character is somehow expressed through both at the same time. In a paradox we cannot easily appreciate, the poems as a pair remind us that all things are contained in God without contradiction. The universe which God made is a place that holds both the innocence of the lamb and the fierceness of the tiger. What seems to us like opposites might actually be two complementary sides of some larger whole. Now let's return to the Pebble and the Clod with a better sense of Blake's message, and ready to consider seriously the idea that the Clod and the Pebble might each express something true about love. If the Clod and Pebble follow the pattern of the collection, they form complementary halves of a larger picture of the world. Neither view of love, taken on its own, is complete. We need to expand our concept of love, in other words, to accommodate both. Of course, that's easier said than done. I struggle to wrap my head around Pebble love. Sure, I can appreciate that love must sometimes be tough. A parent must sometimes be stubborn with their child. It's interesting that the Clod says it this way. It binds another to its delight. Instead of a confrontational rubbing or bumping against another object, the Pebble says that it's binding with others, connecting or joining with them. To bind another to your delight is to transfer your joy to them. In that sense, it's a type of giving or sharing. This might suggest that for the Pebble, contact with other objects is a way of loving them. So we could follow this line of thought further, but at this point you get the idea. The Pebble's view is somehow partially right, even though it is incomplete. The same goes for the Clod. If we think of love only as submissive and receptive, Blake is saying, we are out of balance. We need to expand our concept and understanding of what love is. And this wide concept of love traces back to the wide concept of who God is. God is both gentle, like a lamb, and fierce, like a tiger. God is also love, so we should expect love to be wide and paradoxical as well. Blake's poetry is striking because it unpacks paradox in an extremely simple way. You can probably hear the childlike simplicity of these poems with their comfortable rhyme scheme and archetypal imagery. In a way, his style demonstrates the paradox about love he is describing in this poem. On one hand, his poems are gentle and innocent. They are soft and inviting, and in this sense, they are like the Clod. On the other hand, his message is tough. They strike us like a pebble might, conforming us to their will. They challenge us a bit, saying, do you realize your easy view of love and God is wrong? They're a form of tough love. So he's showing us how to do what he's talking about, how to be both a lamb and tiger, or a Clod and pebble at the same time. Be wise as serpents and as innocent as doves, Christ tells us. Blake, using poetry as his medium, is following this advice.